What's up, everybody? Man, first and foremost, I want to say, for myself, my pops.
Hey.
Thank you guys for all the support. Episode 1, Bryce and Bryce, the fan and the artist. This is started as just a conversation, and it's something that we're getting able to get a lot of great feedback from, and something that we just really enjoy doing. So I want to say thank you to everybody that's been watching, that's been sharing, that's been supporting on social media.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you guys. Anything else, Pops?
Man, no, just thank you. I'm excited to get into the conversation, but
Yeah.
how you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I got a little, small injury. I'm still out
trying
here.
to be on the court?
Yeah, I'm still out here living my hoop dreams, man. So I got a little small, inconvenience. But other than that, I'm happy to just be here, be doing this episode 2, and getting ready and just, excited about the conversation. What about you?
I mean, I can't believe it's, already February. Happy Black History Month.
Yes.
Time is flying. Enjoying the conversation. I know we started off, we talk offline about this stuff for years and years, and then being that it's the 50th year of hip hop, he said, let's get this on record, man. Let's record this and share it with the world. So I'm just excited to continue the conversation.
Likewise. And I think the beautiful thing of it too, us doing this, like you said, we're having these conversations, we're having this dialogue on and off the camera. But for me, it's allowing me to really just dig deeper and go and listen to music, really study the art in ways that I've, always done, but even more so now, just to kind of it's kind of revigorating the energy that I always have for this thing, and like the love of it even more. I'm just finding new ways to, fall in love with it. So it's dope.
Yeah, and so it's so much music hip hop out there that, as like you said, as I started to kind of think back to stuff that I grew up on, and then even kind of going back to some stuff that was out during that time, but I didn't really tap into it for whatever reason, kind of going back and listening or discovering, and then discovering artists that you may bring to me. And so, like I said, it's a whole lot of hip hop out there. It's just not what you hear on the radio. So folks who say radio plays the same thing over and over, but I mean, there's so many great artists out there to discover, you being one of them. So I'm happy to get in conversation, which we're gonna talk about, like, classic albums. Like, what does it take? What is some of your classics? So I know that's the conversation we're gonna get into today.
Yes. What makes a classic album, man? And I feel like that's like, talk about like certain conversations that become, barbershop talk, if you will, in our culture. And this is one of those debates. It's never gonna end, like the debate about what makes a classic album, right? Because I think one of the things that makes it hard to come up with these lists, or Billboard does a list. I know Vibe did a list. I think they collabed this particular year, 2023, with like the top 50 artists, and then I know Rolling Stone usually does like a top album list. Yeah.
So I mean, we're going to talk about what makes a classic hip hop album. It's so much, like I said earlier, so much hip hop out there. I started to, like, the last couple of days, just kind of play some of the records that I thought were classics to me.
Yeah.
But as we know, like you said, people can be biased, can be like the times that you grew up in, where you were in your life. Maybe it's where you were living. Like, all these different things have an impact on it. So I'm curious for you to name, like, give me some of your top classic, like, what do you think classic hip hop albums from your perspective?
Yeah, so, and I'll definitely answer that. I just feel like this conversation, it's a great conversation to have just across the spectrum, right? That question of who's your, top 5 or best artist, what's your favorite hip hop album, that's something that'll, go on forever, and it should, because it gives you, the ability to debate and have discourse and bring certain facts and evidence into situations that make it for a bigger conversation. It's funny shit. Me and my homie, shout out Kev and Chioki, we were just at the bar a couple of days ago, having a debate about favorite albums and what this meant to me spiritually or connection wise. And so for me, it's always a tough conversation in preparation for this convo. I really tried to really think about what those different albums can be for me, and then what the criteria would be in general, like to make it a classic album. But in terms of ones that stand out to me, Gotta go with Tupac, Me Against the World.
Okay.
Gotta go with Lil Wayne, The Carter, the first of the series, the Carter series. Gotta go with 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. That's a classic in my opinion.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And then gotta bring it back home. 3 Times Crazy, Stacking Chips. Those are like the 4 that I could say off of my head. But yeah.
3 Times Crazy, Stacking Chips. Like that's gonna be like an underground.
Yes.
That people may not have heard of, right?
Yep.
Bay Area group.
Yep.
Right. Me Against the World. That's actually one of my favorite Tupac albums, right? And I didn't even have that in my classics, but that is a classic. I'd listen to that a lot. I didn't listen to Pac too much when he went to Death Row.
Yeah.
Like I heard it because it was popular music because he did so well. But that's one of my favorite records from Pac. So for me, like it was so many years, but I'll go with Paid in Full right here. Rakim, Eric B. and Rakim. By any means necessary, KRS-One. That's BDP. I mean, we're going back to the 80s on that. Illmatic with Nas. I mean, that's just timeless. So many tracks on there. Reasonable Doubt with Jay-Z. That's still one of my favorite Jay-Z's. Like, as we were talking about earlier, like this is before Jay-Z blew up. Yeah. So I remember getting the cassette and telling one of my friends, hey, Gerald, I was telling him, I was like, you got to listen to this dude, Jay-Z. He was like, oh man, like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you got to listen to it. And I still listen to Reasonable Doubt. Aquemini by Outkast. I really love that. Goody Mob, Soul Food. The single was Cell Therapy. And then we'll talk about this. Like, obviously people gonna think I'm biased because that's my son, but I'm listening to Neighborhood Diamonds and then King Diamond and what you were able to do there. And we can get into that conversation. I feel like those are 2 CDs that I don't really find myself skipping through, and I go back and listen to on repeat. So for me, that's a qualifier. And lastly, Ready to Die by Biggie Smalls. But I'm missing some, but those are some of the ones that stand out.
Yeah, and I think that, and we talked about this a couple of days ago on the phone, is like for me the beauty of streaming. Of course, we know people aren't getting compensated fairly. We know that's the thing that's been going on. I need to get right. But aside from that, the fact that with streaming, it allows you to go explore. Yeah. Like I'm listening to albums now that I would have never probably listened to before.
That's true.
Just cause I could because like we have a conversation. You tell me about an artist that I may have not listened to their catalog, and I'll go back and listen, and I have that. Now I can come to the conversation with some type of information and discourse. And I know for me, the way that I do it, I'll go listen to the album, listen to the songs, try to really figure out what sticks out, and then I also double back and then I go research. I look up, usually on Wikipedia, I look up what that album, like what were people saying at that time, what it did, like, numbers wise, but more so the impact that it had when it came out. Then I go watch if the artist, is on YouTube and they have the interviews from back in the days, videos from back in the days. So I'm actually like almost as if it came out today. I'm going and discovering it in that way. So that's for me. If an artist that I haven't heard from has been out 20 plus years, but I'm just now getting discovered to them, and I can relate and feel the music in the way in which they like wanted to deliver it 20 plus years ago, that's a classic to me.
Right, and that's the power of the internet. That's why I always tell people, like, we got more access to information than any time in history, right? Yeah. So you can actually, you don't have to just listen and go by my word, which you, like you just said you do. You can actually go back and listen to it. Back in the day, if I told you, hey, you got to go listen to that, you would actually have to go to the record store and spend your money, right? And you may not have enough money. Like if I gave you 5 artists and it's like $15, $20 a CD or whatever, you may like, I can't buy all that today. I might listen to it. So, I mean, that's the pro and the con, right? As we talk about the inequities in streaming. But what would you say, like, what do you feel like is the ingredient for a classic album? Like, what are some of those ingredients?
Yeah. I'll just name a few that goes into making a classic album or having a classic album. I think it starts with the title of it, right? The title, what you titled it, is very important because, and then what that goes secondly, what you title it, I feel like the rollout, the marketing, the promotion, effective in a classic album, the ingredients that have that is being able to tie all that together. So if you have a title, depending on what your title is, and you're able to kind of create this world, right, based on that project, based on that album, and make people understand it and people can relate to it, I feel like that's important. That's very important. Another thing I would say, sequencing. That's something that just like most important to me.
Sequencing.
If you can sequence it, if you can sequence your album from top to bottom, like you said, no skips, that's a classic. And it's hard to do that. Like even with myself, like that's what I focus on more so than anything, is sequencing. And the easiest part, no, I won't say the easiest part. The hardest part is figuring out what the intro and the outro would be. Once I figure that out, everything else kind of falls in line. Maybe, but I know now from doing it so long, what fits what mood, what sequence, and I test myself and go play the songs from top to bottom in order and see if anything is out of place, if anything doesn't feel right. And so I think that's a big part of it, is sequencing. And I think lastly, I would say the theme of it, right? That goes back into the title, that goes back into how you market it, but the title fits the theme of the project fits the rollout. It's just a total package. So if you can put all of those things together, I feel like you more often than not, if the music is good, you'll have a classic album.
Title, sequencing, and the last one.
Title, sequencing, and then the theme, like the overall theme of it.
Said from a true artist. Like you come in, you could tell he's an artist because he come in from an artist perspective.
For real.
And I'll tell you because my ingredients from a fan is, to your point, I mean, the title is important. It catches you. But I'm more so, if I had to say ingredients, it's going to be the production, the music, right, the lyrics, and then the sequencing of the tracks on the record, right? Making sure, like you said, that it's like you're watching a movie, like it's everything matches. Also, originality is important to me. Like I like to see artists that you're not going to hear, each track doesn't sound the same. It's them, but it's something uniquely different, whether that's the production, whether that's the way in which they have skits in between. Another thing is lyrics is like so important to me, and lyrics and production is so important to me, man. Like, and also storytelling to me. Like if I like to party records. I mean, we all do. We all like to have fun, but if you're gonna have 11 songs where you're talking about partying, drinking, and women, that's not gonna be something that is gonna catch that's just the way I am. I want to hear you tell a story.
Have you always been that way though? Like, was it that way when you were younger? Or I know that.
As far as like the artists who I really followed. Yeah. Obviously I listened to the Two Live Crews and people like that. But that's not something that was more like you're in a party setting, you just want to have fun. Yeah. But that's not something that I continued to listen to or listen to even frequently. It was just more like if we were hanging out at a party and somebody played it, it's a fun, a group that's a lot of fun. And so we would listen to it. Yeah. But those who kept my attention and that I went back and forth and listened to and over, they usually had some pen game. They had the production that matched it. Like you said, they had a theme, they had a sequence that you were like, this song, next song, boom. You didn't have to skip through it. Yeah. So those are some of the things that stand out to me. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Midnight Marauders by a Tribe Called Quest. That's a classic record, man. So just wanted to say that as well. That's one of my favorites, like I can listen to. I'm really big on, as you and I've talked a lot of times, I'm really big on too, like sampling, like how creative can you take something from the soul era, jazz, funk, all these foundational records, put it into your hip hop, put it into your record, and I may not even know, right?
Like a subtle sample.
That's a science, that's an art within itself.
Yeah. That I think, and I'm happy you said that, because what has been special to me in this discovery process of like listening to certain albums on streaming, perfect example, 3 Times Crazy, right? One time, like a couple years ago, I really wanted to study and kind of see, especially like Oakland music history, where I'm from. I wanted to study the music scene in more detail. I already knew about 3 Times Crazy, went and started to listen to their songs more, like the actual catalog, Stacking Chips album specifically. Within that album, I realized that a couple of the songs and even a couple of Bay Area artists around that time sampled loose ends. Specifically, there's a couple songs, the names mistake me, but on Stacking Chips, they sampled loose ends. Right. But I didn't know that until I listened to Loose Ends and studied their catalog. Oh, you start talking about it at some point a couple years ago. That I went and listened to them, and then I go listen to the song that I've been listening to. And I'm like, wait, this is the same song. They sampling it, and it was like mind blowing to me because I'm like, damn, it was like hidden in plain sight the whole time. But had I would have not really went and dig deep, those correlations wouldn't have happened. And the fact that I made those correlations, that's special. Like being able to listen to something, that discovery piece of it, and listening to stuff that like came out, years between each other, but the connection and the through line is still in there. That's how you get, No Loose Ends, the song that I dropped, sampled by them, hanging on the string, Loose Ends. So I feel like just that whole connection, it was dope. It was dope.
And I remember I told you my story about Loose Ends, like hanging on a string. Like that was the first record that I actually. Like I wanted to be a DJ growing up, so that was the first record that I tried to scratch. And your grandfather was like, "What the hell are you doing to my turntable? Like, stop doing that. Stop it." And I was like, "Okay." Then he go upstairs, and I'll go back to doing it. And so I was a kid, like I wasn't even in high school, and I'm listening to Loose Ends. If you guys don't know Loose Ends, check them out. UK group, soul UK group with a great catalog. A lot of great music, man, but that's the beauty of it. And a lot of people, we talked about in an earlier episode, first episode, is like the foundation of hip hop is sampling. So break beats and sampling. So it's still fun to me to discover like how a lot of these producers and DJs put records together and sample stuff. They just catch 10 seconds of a song and be able to loop that and make that into a whole, like a hit record, right?
That's always been special. I know now, like, the business of sampling is tough, right? We've heard about, numerous lawsuits, people sampling stuff. And so my whole thing, especially as an artist, and I'm learning more, like even like in present time with doing sync placements, how important having stuff that you can clear. Sample free stuff ideally, but just making that process as easy as possible. But I also feel like that the business of sampling and the way in which it kind of like has evolved, it can stifle creativity too in some ways, because that's what we started. That's the way that we started, like you said. And so I think that overall though, just the beauty of just sampling and the beauty of sampling and creating a new life from a record. That's a skill, a producer skill that is very, very underrated in my opinion.
Oh shoot, you guys. Those who don't know, Digging in the Crates crew, check them out. That was Fat Joe, Diamond D, one of the most underrated producers to me, Lord Finesse. Like these guys are like the foundations and what someone say the elders of hip hop. Lord Finesse is still out there touring. Diamond D is still doing records. I mean, they had a whole crew that was really, the name of it is that they digged in the crates. They found it was really a task to find something that everybody else wasn't sampling. Like it's easy to sample a popular record, but can you find something from like an obscure European or even Asian record, take that, flip it, and make it into a hit song? So I want to get into your classics because I feel like you made two classics back to back. You made Neighborhood Diamonds, and let me tell you the significance of that, because this was during COVID, right? So we were all trapped in the house. I don't even know, you may have mentioned to me that you were making a record, a full album, but I can't recall that. And then when it came out, it gave me, the thing that's been missing, a lot of people said is missing from hip hop. For me, it's like that excitement and that wow, like, oh man, this is giving you like a euphoria where you're excited about it. So to hear that, because I'm watching you develop, obviously, and to see you put a whole project cohesively together with the way in which those songs were, that was, I'm sitting in this backyard right here, like playing it, just as a fan, not even like, oh, this is my son, but just as a fan. So talk to me about that, and then we can get into King Diamond, because that was, you topped that with King Diamond.
Yeah, shit, to be honest with you, like, I didn't even know I was making an album, right? Like you said, in the middle of COVID, or the beginning of COVID too, So I'm just fresh off of, doing my tour, the Independence tour.
Yeah.
So I'm on a high. I'm experiencing a high from that, and then to have my last stop be supposed to be on my birthday in LA.
That's when COVID hit.
That's when
right?
COVID. That's literally the day, y'all. March 13th, I think 2019. I'll never forget. And people who like came on the tour, they were like, that was like the last time things were normal when we came to your show. And so for that to happen on March 13th on my birthday, it's like, it's like it felt defeating in a lot of ways because we didn't know what was going on. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of fear, a lot of paranoia. And so it was something that we as a society, as a people, never experienced before in this way. And so that all of these emotions we're going through, I'm isolated now. And like as much as, as much as COVID impacted so many people's lives in a negative way, for me, one thing it really did, and I hear a lot of people say that as well, it just gave me like a new level of just, I think, focus or just clarity that I didn't have before. You have this work, you have daily duties that you never realize takes up so much brain power. And for the one time, forever, that I've can ever point to, you didn't have that.
Yeah.
So
no more distractions.
No more distractions. That's the best way to say it. Distractions. And so I am initially when COVID first started, there's a couple of weeks of being disappointed because the tour, although it was a success in a lot of ways, not being able to finish it the way that I intended, that was tough. But I just started to figure out like what's next. So I remember and that's another thing we should have mentioned, or I would mention for my criteria for classic album. It's the context of what's going on in the world when it's created. So for me, that's going on when Neighborhood Diamonds is coming about. I'm learning. I'm on I started off just picking up a camera. Shout out my boy B-Rad. He let me borrow his camera, and I was just going around my neighborhood taking photos. I didn't know what I was doing. I was between asking different photographers that I knew. On YouTube, I was just trying to get that creative energy flowing.
Creative energy, putting in that input to help you be creative.
Yeah, like whatever. And so once I started getting to a certain level of understanding of that, I took it even a step further and said, you know what? I've always wanted to learn how to record and mix my own music. I'm not saying that I wanted to just be like completely take it away from where I never, have to go to an engineer again. I don't think that was the intention, but it was for me to be self-sufficient, right? I feel like even I've heard reports of throughout this period, that's the most anybody music-wise and music equipment, that's the most money I was ever spent in this history of time is everybody creating their own studios. And so I had the microphone already. Pro Tools, I was able to get that for a discount. And so, I'm like, you know what? It was fear in there because I'm like, I don't know, it's gonna be hard, it's take too much time. I don't know what I'm doing, but again, through YouTube, research, calling up my engineers day and night. Shout out Sky, thank you. Shout out Giles, Bryson. I would call them and just, hey, how do I do this? And they'll tell me, okay, do that. How do I do this? Anything, I figured it out. I started figuring it out, and as I'm figuring it out, I'm like, oh, this is the missing piece for me. I've always wanted to. I've loved to even in my own music. Definitely in my own music, when I go to engineers, when I would, spend this money, I always was so adamant about sound design. The delays on the song that you hear, the reverb, the way the beat drops in a certain way to accent a certain lyric. All of these different things I loved. And so now I had the ability to do it on my own.
Take control of
it's over with. It's over with. So I'm learning all of that as this is happening, and I'm just creating. I'm not thinking of what this will be, what it could come to. I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it. Song just started coming. Shout out Ashlyn Jordan, one of the top dopest young producers in the Bay Area from Oakland, artist as well. I met him through my boy Chima Dior, and we just started to just cook up. I would just sampling, like you said, the love of sampling at that time. And I've always been like that, where a lot of the music that I listen to on a day-to-day is R&B.
Yeah, I know that.
We talked about that. And so I would just, on YouTube, I hear a sample, or I would be somewhere out, and I hear a sample, or I hear a song, I'm like, send it to him, let's sample that. Me and him coming back and forth, we on FaceTime, we on the phone, I'm telling him, he'll send me what he got, I'm like, all right, change this right here. So in the midst of that, I'm producing all this stuff. And then before you know it, we look up, we about 8, 9 songs in. And people, it's just a matter of like I don't, and I know a lot of artists may be able to really, really relate to this, but sometimes when we do stuff, like the end result is polished and it comes out right, but the journey to get there,
that's the fun part.
That's
right?
the fun part. It's all over the place. So I was just creating things. I was drawing inspiration from so many different places, and then I think once I had enough to say this is going to be something, then I made the decision. Then I made the decision to also say, you know what, Neighborhood Diamonds. This is something that I've been speaking about.
Yeah.
This is something that, you know, is really my brand. This is what I stand for. Why not make that a project of the same title?
Yeah,
That's
I think there's so much in that. I mean, one of the things, like you said, is I hear like the power of resilience, the power of creativity, the power of not being worried about what you can't control. Because a lot of people, that's the difficulty of what happened during that period, as we saw just in the whole environment of the world. Like a lot of people were just so, they didn't have control. They didn't know what was coming, what COVID was going to do, what was going to happen with work, what was going to do this. So they were worried about those things, those external things that they didn't have control over, which can, to me, it can handicap you from being creative. So shout out to you for being able to say, you know what, my tour ended. It was supposed to be in LA because I was excited. You know, I was telling everybody we were getting ready to come to the show. Everybody was excited to come to the show, the last leg of the tour. So I was disappointed in that regard. But instead of, you know, you take your bumps and bruises, take a minute, and then you just like, well, you know what can I do to, you know, keep going? And it ended up being this beautiful project. And that's like I said, for me, you know, we're all working from home, can't go out. And so that was one of the records or albums that kind of gave me joy because I could listen to it throughout. I could see the growth that you had and to know that you produced it or a part of producing it. That was great to see. So I was like, okay, this guy is continuing to work on his craft. He's continuing to get better. So that I remember that day vividly. Like I said, I remember being in the backyard, having a beer, drinking to it, and just really being excited about music and hip hop. Then you come back with King Diamond, which we have right here, and went and took it to another level, and we're doing some things. You're on there singing. You're using auto-tune. So it was, but everything was, you got live instrumentation. Shout out to my nephew, your cousin Spencer, playing the saxophone. Like, talk to me about how that came. How did you create that?
Yeah, creating King Diamond, man, it was just another one of those, like, I like, to be honest, that's how I know, like, God is real, because there's just certain things in process in my artistry that I just can't fully explain or articulate.
Yeah.
Things just happen. The universe moves out of my way, and things come together right when they need to. So King Diamond, again, and I would say too, like, for any artist, any creative watching this, and or maybe wanting to, you know, take their artistry to another level, I think there's two things that anybody across any discipline can benefit from, and I learned it through this process. And the first thing is to not overthink. Yeah, you're thinking in a general sense, but not overthink. The music was coming. I wasn't getting in the way of the music. I wasn't so hell bent on this has to be this way, this has to be that, like so rigid. I was just creating, and because of that, it allowed me to just create in ways that I, you know, hadn't been able to. And then secondly, time. Like, I can't tell you how much money I spent on, you know, just studio time and going to being on a time limit, 2-hour block, 3-hour block, 4-hour block. Yeah, I can create songs, so I come prepared, but in my opinion, like, having endless time to create, it allows you. I'm in my apartment recording a certain line 100 times if I want to. Nobody else hears that but me. So I can say, you know what, I'm gonna get it right. Or this particular beat, or this part of the beat, I wanted to stop right here. It's not as sharp as I wanted to do. I'm gonna do it again and again and again until I get it right. So I'm discovering all of these things in the midst of this a process, in the midst of a world that's in chaos. And that's just how I, you know, create some of my best stuff is when things is all over the place in the world, I'm able to find peace within, in music and through music. And so King Diamond, and I'll just tell this story because it's a part of it too, right? We talk about theme, we talk about context, we talk about titling. King Diamond, in the midst of COVID, when I was working on Neighborhood Diamonds, I got a bike for the first time. A beach cruiser.
That's true.
Shout out Black Diamond, that's what I called it. I got it off Craigslist. Shout out my boy Hefe. He's the one that from high school, he he started riding bikes, and he like, bro, you should get a bike. Let's find, you know, something else to do. Exactly. We went on Craigslist, found it, went, you know, to out the way in, you know, in the valley somewhere in LA, picked it up, and it was in the kitchen. I mean, it was in the garage, just you know, collecting dust. And so I saw that, and I had my homie who I played basketball with that lived in my neighborhood, shout out Mario. He just happened to, I find out, like the customized bikes for a living, or not for a living, for a hobby. He just liked to do it. Yeah. And so I'm like, I got the bike. I told him like what I wanted to get done, and he did it. He painted it. He got it all souped up. Mooney Media, we shot the video for that. Like, just shout doing that. Like, shout out Mooney, man. That was a dope. But I had the bike, and lo and behold, a couple months later, several months after, it got stolen. Like my bike. Yeah, I remember that. You remember that? Like my bike was literally in my apartment, in the garage, locked up on the bike rack. Somebody, you know, went in there, Jimmy rigged the door. I had it, and the crazy part about this though, I'm showing, and I am mindful of it, but I'm also more like, as I'm getting older and just have more knowledge of self, I'm more open to sharing my life with people. Got it. Because I think that's important, especially as an artist. Yeah. To see different aspects of who you are. Because I'm different aspects of me. It humanizes me, it personalizes me. And so whenever I go through, you know, certain things, my goal is to share with somebody else, because, you know, we never know what people are, you know, suffering from and struggling with. And so that happened. I put it online. Like, what the hell happened? My bike got stolen. And everybody hitting me like, damn, what the hell? Like they seeing how much, they were just seeing me because I was documenting like me riding my bike, so they knew how much I love that bike. Right. And then not to cut you off, but talk to me about like being able to and be in movement and on your bike, that helped like with your creative process and like the thoughts that come through when you're moving, exercising or whatever. Yes. Yeah, okay. That was, I'm happy you said that, because that added to me recording the album. I literally would go in my neighborhood certain hours of the night, in the morning, put my headphones on, and literally just ride my bike and feel like, how do I feel listening to this? Got it. And like have my playlist of order of how I wanted to sequence it. Does this fit? Now let me move that song. No, the mix on this sounds too, you know, too loud, too low, whatever the case may be. So that was a space and environment in which I was creating in, and that just makes for something classic. And so King Diamond, I lose the bike. So there's story. Without even knowing it, I'm creating a story, a narrative for people to follow. Yeah. Although it's a bike, right? It's just a material thing. It's nothing like I didn't, you know, lose a limb or get injured or anything like that, or lose my life. God, you know, thank God. But it was something that, you know, was important to me, and people knew that. It was a part of me. So when losing that, I just, when stuff like that happens, my mindset is to just see how I can take it and turn it into a positive. So over time, I'm looking to search for another bike, find another bike. And, you know, I'm like, King Diamond, shout out my homegirl, Christina, who's been a supporter ever since we met the last couple years. She really supports a lot of the stuff that I do. She would just call me that, King Diamond. Like, that was just something she would just call me as a nickname. And then, something like I said, spiritual, the connection. I'm like, King Diamond, I'm like, this is it. Not only am I going to name the bike after that, but I'm going to name the project that, right? And it was just like a no-brainer. It made so much sense. I did the photo shoot, everything came together, and man, I can't really fully articulate, like I said, like just the appreciation or just like how crazy everything is. Certain pieces that I'm missing in the story, but what you're getting, or what you get for King Diamond, is in the midst of that. It's a midst of collaboration. It's a midst of loss. Project. It's a midst of just, you know, my community. Shout out my boy, my DJ, Sounds by Goodall. Giles, Ma Nicole, Chima Dior, Spencer Porter, like you said, my cousin Spencer. It's just so much that went into that, and I'll just say this because that adds to it too. Like, my goal with each project is to find something that I can improve on and execute it and apply it to the next project. So one of and after Neighborhood Diamonds, I'm like, how can I grow, evolve, and even take it a step further? Get better. And it was live instrumentation. Oh, okay. That was my first time. That's the first project, you know, with the saxophone. That's true. That I put, you know, that was my attempt to see how that works. And so me and Spencer locked in. I sent him the song. We locked in the studio, and the rest is history. So it was just, I just get so much joy out of just that part of it. Like, I really, really love.
That's the journey.
Right, the journey. You're right, the journey.
a journey. I mean, people want to fast forward to the end result, but like you said, a part of the beauty of it is the journey, taking something that's an idea, bringing other people into it, working through it, and then creating a end product, right? One of the most powerful songs on that album. If you guys don't get it, I mean, you need to stream it right now, because like I said, to me, it's a classic record. It's something that I continue to listen to. Now it's taking over Neighborhood Diamonds. I used to listen to that and wore that out. You gave me the CD on that. I was CDing it. But King Diamond, like one of the most powerful tracks on there to me, I mean, there's a lot on there, is Granny Said.
Yeah.
And that just that whole hook, like Granny said that, tell me that hook again. Granny said that things are going to be okay.
Granny said don't ever lose your faith.
Don't ever lose your faith.
Granny said God gonna make a way. Hallelujah. Amen.
Yeah, that's a powerful song. And rest in peace to Isabel Brown. She was a powerful woman, entrepreneur, lover of Christ, lover of family.
Yep.
So what made you, and this was before, you created this before she passed away. So what made you create that song? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, that just goes into just not overthinking and letting stuff just come to me. So in the midst of me creating that record, I'm going back home once a month and I'm seeing my grandmother who, you know, started off or for all of the years that I've known her being this lively person.
Yes.
And, you know, always active. She would be out at all days and nights.
Always. In some type of
meetings,
doing
grocery shopping.
Right? Yeah.
And so I'm going from seeing that to her being a shell of that through, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia. And I'm experiencing that and it's affecting me and it's hurtful, it's sad. You go through all the different emotions. And so I was in that mindset, and then shout out Nikki G. Again, talk about just God and timing. Like he literally, I think he just posted a snippet of a beat on Instagram, the Granny Said beat, and he was just like, "Man, this sound good. This would sound good for Bryce." And I tapped in, like, "Send me that." You're like, "Yeah, send me that right away." Wow. And I kid you not, as soon as he sent it to me, it just came. I don't know what prompted it, but the words kind of wrote themselves. And I knew it was a special record, and I knew that the end, as we knew it in her physical form, was coming. Yeah, okay. And so I just had to piece the thought of mine or the frame of mind to say, you know what, how can I commemorate her while she's here, but more importantly, when she's no longer here. So that's kind of how that came about.
It's a beautiful record, and when you did it live, phew, I mean, I think that I see that song being able to do that even on our larger stage, but it was really powerful to see you do that live. And like you said, that's something that's going to keep her legacy going with, you know, that she's gone in the physical form, but what a beautiful way to keep her legacy going. As I think, and it's something that most people can relate, everybody should be able to relate to. Everybody got a grandmother, you know, grandma taking care of you. Some people got grandmothers, that's their moms. Right. So to be able to put something on wax and commemorate her, I mean, what a powerful song. The whole project, like I said, is powerful. You guys should definitely get it, stream it, share it with others. In closing, like, what do you want to say? Like, we talked about timeless records, classic records. Anything else anything you want to say as we close out, you know, episode 2?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I will say is that as a artist and like where we're at in the state of hip hop or just music in general, because of streaming and because of the way in which music is created and consumed, it's hard to really like sacrifice a couple years to you know, create a body of work that can last forever, because as we know now that we're in an attention economy where that's the currency. Like, as much attention that you can put on yourself as frequent as possible, that what works. But I just hope that in the midst of that, people like myself and a lot of other artists that we named but we didn't name continue to realize that the music is what's most important. Like, nobody can tell myself or you any differently. It's the music. It starts with the music. So that's the mentality that I always have when I'm creating stuff. It starts with the music. Like, because if you don't have that, that's the foundation by which everything else, you know, exists on. Yeah. So if you don't take the time to really create something that can last forever, that's how I want to do it. I don't know about everybody else, but I want to be an artist that my catalog and discography can last forever. And so if that is the same approach that, you know, anybody watching this wants to have, that is something that you should keep in mind. That's what I would say.
I mean, I couldn't say it even better. I mean, the people the artists that I love, I mean, really dig into. As you can see on the wall, those are some of them. These are projects that last 20, 30 years. Yeah. You think about what Marvin Gaye did with What's Going On. It's prophetic. It's still stuff that we're dealing with today. If you listen to one of the ones that I mentioned, KRS-One, By Any Means Necessary, he has a song on there, so many, but got a song in there, Stop the Violence. We're still dealing with violence in our community. Jimmy talked about the AIDS crisis before it really emerged. So to your point, I mean, obviously we love to have fun. I love party records, but we're talking about those people who creating those timeless projects are going to be the ones who, like you said, have all the ingredients that you talked about, but then also have, you know, a prophetic mind to what they're saying, and they have an attention to detail what's happening in the current state, and they're able to bring that forth on a record. Tupac, Me Against the World is an example of that. So I just tell you guys, go back and listen to some classics, man, and let's continue to, you know, bridge the gap. Let's appreciate the foundation, but also appreciate what's current and what's coming down the pipeline, and keep this art form alive in its 50th year. Hopefully it will be another 50 years plus.
Keep the conversation going,
all
man.
Right.
I am Bryce Savoy.
Bryce Anthony, Chef Bryce, aka Chef Bryce.
And this is Bryce and Bryce, the Fan and the Artist, episode 2.
Episode 2.
We out.
Thank
Thank
you.
y'all.